I grew up in East LA. Like, that is not where many Muslims grow up, you know? And so my reality and my understanding of who is spiritual, or what spirituality means, and what faith is, and how God is part of my life is very different from other realities. And this is where I think it's a blessing to be in the United States, where you also have not only the immigrant Muslim population, but you also have the African American Muslim population, which has very much spearheaded what it means to be black and Muslim, right, in this country. And being a community that we're able to grow with as Latinos, coming from similar realities, right? So I would say building the community has been the challenge.
So in terms of complications, I'd say I had two really big complications growing up in terms of Islam. And one of them, I would say that my transition point in like mid-high school. I grew up, I mean, my background is I'm a Palestinian American, first generation, so my parents were born overseas. And I mean, this is probably offset, but this is like the greatest transition point was after 9/11, when I did feel like I felt kind of removed from the faith. I started to kind of pull myself away, and I felt like at times I had to conceal my faith, just worrying about what people would think of me. You know, they would tie my faith to my culture, to whatever misconceptions they had. So it was difficult for me in the beginning to really, to be strict about my prayers and about doing the the faculties that my religion requires. So I'd say that was one of the greatest complications I had. And the second one was in the beginning was kind of like what to expect out of worship, what to expect out of Islam in terms of like an inner feeling. So in the beginning, I would say I was worshiping, or I was practicing Islam in order to obtain a feeling. I was kind of searching to have this enlightening experience, and I it was about, I'd say, the beginning of college where I realized that like the feeling comes on later. You can't like worship searching for the feeling and just waiting for that kind of spiritual high, because it might never come, and that might kind of hold you back. But I pushed through it, and I would say that's one of the greatest complications also in my life.
My greatest complication in my life was probably myself. I like to think. I think a lot, and it always, messes me up at times. Especially early on when I was just learning about, after I got some knowledge and I started doing some Islamic work, which is, MSA work, or helping people out, that knew me and who would come up to me with their problems, asking for help, get advice, stuff like that. I got to a point where I kept thinking about, I can make a difference, I can change, I can, help people out, I can help everyone out, any person I comes up to me, I can change them, I can, do everything for them. And so my complication is when that first person that I tried to help, went and got worse. And not only did they get worse, they got exponentially worse, and it continued and it got worse and worse. And then I got to a point where I felt like I had no influence in their lives, and I lost that connection I had with them. And then at that point, that really hit me hard, because then I kept blaming myself and saying that I was responsible for this person, and I let this person go astray, or go into things that were not so great. And that's when I got really depressed, and I would say that I started being not doubting Islam, but doubting myself and about the work I could do, and trying to pull away from the things I was doing, and trying to help people less. But what happened to me was that I started to realize that the people I did help, there were more of those than the people that I lost. And the people that I lost, there's a saying that you can only take a horse to the water, you can't make him drink it. So after I got to the conclusion, I realized that there's only so much a certain individual can do. I came to terms with myself and was able to continue with my path and my journey to better myself, because that's the only way to help others, is to better yourself first spiritually, and better your character, And like Laura was saying, you know, she converted to Islam because of the character of the Muslims around her. And, you know, to better yourself as your character is the only way to help the people around you. Because if people see you, you know, cleaning up after an event, they'll feel bad and they'll start cleaning up after an event. And so it's a kind of like a guilt factor, but, you know, it's just shows of the character that you have. And so from that, I'd say that it helped me to improve myself, and then it gave me the strength to help others. So that's how I overcame the complication I had.
So the question was whether the panelists face any complications or conflicts, and I'm sure everyone in this room can kind of associate with that. We all face complications on a regular basis, and one of the most important things is to turn back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and realize that at the end of the day, we're here to worship Him, and hopefully then your faith will be renewed and everything will inshallah work out. So lastly, after facing these complications, these regular struggles, today, how have you progressed in your search for knowledge and, in the larger picture, your search for Allah?
Can you hear me? Okay. I think that especially for converts, but for every Muslim, progressing in terms of spirituality, knowledge, everything, it's like 2 steps forward, 1 step back, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. And soon after I converted and that honeymoon phase kind of wore off, and I realized that every single Muslim is trying to find their own identity and determine which path is best for them, that you have to sift through culture, through different approaches to Islam. I think that was really frustrating and hard for me to learn at first, and I was angry a lot of the time because I could never tell if the knowledge that I was getting was, you know, actually Islam, or, you know, what kind of Islam. It was just hard to sort through all that knowledge, especially when you have like Google and these weekend lectures and everything. There's so much knowledge that sometimes that's the biggest obstacle, is just dealing with that. And so luckily, most of you here know Professor Muzaffar. The week I converted, Ramia brought me right to him, and so I think that's been one of the biggest blessings, is having someone who knows where to meet you, where you're at spiritually, culturally, academically, everything in your life, and then give you steps that you can take that will be concrete, consistent steps towards Allah, rather than just making enormous leaps and bounds in your faith and trying to practice and wake up for the night prayer, you know, right after you convert. That's really hard to do. So I think it's been learning that it's okay to take small steps, and it's better to take small, consistent steps forward rather than taking consistent leaps and bounds. And I think knowing that learning will never stop, especially in Islam, you never stop learning. That's been one of my favorite parts about Islam. And I just met a convert. She's a Chinese international student who converted a few weeks ago, and she came to a Quran study, and all of these Muslims were walking in, and she's like, "Are these all converts?" And I'm like, "No, we're the only converts here." And she's like, well, "Why are they here? Don't they know already? Didn't they like learn this?" And I'm like, "That's the best thing about Islam. You never stop learning." And so her eyes lit up when she realized even like the biggest scholars in the world on their deathbed, they know that there's still so much to learn. So I think that's been my favorite part about Islam, that the journey will never end.
The question is, how do you continue on your journey towards peace?
Yeah, how have you progressed?
Okay. To be completely honest, my journey towards peace has been a combination of fighting and submitting. As Muslims, we're told that you are committing yourself to submitting yourself to the will of God, right? And I've always had this like internal conflict, and most of the time when I get a chance to like ask a scholar a question, I'll ask something along these lines. But I'm a community organizer on the southwest side of Chicago, 63rd and Rockwell, so that's Chicago Lawn. It's right west of Inglewood, so you hear Inglewood a lot in the news. That gives you an idea of the neighborhood that I work in. As Muslims, you're also taught to focus on the hereafter, right? So develop your character, as mentioned, for the hereafter, and to not entertain yourself with this world, right? And that's really hard for me, because for me, I see myself committed towards social justice and towards attaining peace on earth as well. And before that sounds like a Hallmark card, it really is how do you submit yourself to something greater than yourself, but how do you still keep fighting for it at the same time? And I think internally that's an ongoing struggle for me. On a day-to-day basis, it's, do I continue this battle or do I just let go and allow for what's meant to happen to happen? And I think that's where spirituality comes into play, and really having that strength within yourself. So what keeps me at peace is the youth I'm blessed to work with on the southwest side of Chicago, and knowing that we are all building a community that's willing to fight for inequalities, but of course my faith and my ability to inhale and exhale, to let go at the end of the day and be like, okay, this is what was meant to be accomplished in these 24 hours, and I'm going to go to sleep now. And I think that's a lot of faith and the process of faith in general. It's as mentioned, it's 2 steps forward and 10 backwards sometimes. And how do you still wake up each day willing to fight just as much and willing, and sometimes fighting is exactly that, it is submitting. So I think for me, my path is very much, and Al-Ghazali's essay on hope and fear is an essay that very much has benefited me in that process. So I encourage everybody to read that.
So my path towards peace, I would say, is mostly internal. It's about internal conflicts. It's about winning little victories every day within myself. So something as simple as checking intentions on a daily basis on every single thing that I did. So this is something I try to hold myself to, and I'm still trying to kind of, I would say, not perfect, but continue on the path towards perfection. Is checking intentions behind everything I did. So whether it was going somewhere to eat dinner, or hanging out with a certain group of friends, or just being in a certain place, to kind of look back and say, why am I doing this? What's the ultimate goal? Is it for the greater glory of God, or am I trying to fulfill some kind of feeling that I'm searching for in this world? And I spoke before about kind of worship. Like I was searching before how to worship, and expecting this magical kind of spiritual high to descend on me. But I realized that it's something that's worked on over time. And I found that the greatest contribution to that was able to like I spoke before also, that I like to, one of my greatest kind of mediums towards learning about Islam was through the literature, and through different online resources. And once I was able to take that knowledge and apply it to myself and teach it to others, I really felt that sense of fulfillment, that feeling that I was searching for finally came when I was able to teach that to others, teach that to the youth in our community. I started volunteering my time and trying to help out as much as I could. And that's when I saw things starting to come to fruition, as far as that's concerned.
How have you progressed in your search for knowledge, and most of all, your search for Allah?
My progression has been through service of others. I've learned more and more things through helping people, not only through MSA work, but also through youth involvement that I do outside of college. But every time you talk to a younger person who's struggling with things, whether it's smoking weed, drinking alcohol, it's anything like that, whether they come up to you and they ask you for help, and they say, I want to stop doing these things, and you learn things just by talking. And it's the greatest thing I've noticed, is that when people come up to you and talk to you, and they feel that trust that they have with you as an elder brother, to come up to you and say, this is the problem I'm going through, and this is why I do it, and I want to stop, but just because I like the high so much, that's why I do it. And it's crazy actually to go through this experience and then just try to help as much as you can, because none of us are really qualified to help someone at that level, like a social worker. But just try and help them, and you don't want to be their parent and say this is right, this is wrong. But you tell them as an elder brother and be like, this is what's going on, this is what it's going to lead to, and Islamically, and you just tell them what's basically the thing that to help them the most. And what they don't want to hear is, oh, I'm disappointed in you, you're doing this bad thing. You don't want to be that person who judges them. And what I've learned mainly through the past 2 years through helping people is that everyone has a new problem and everyone has a problem they go through. Even all of us up here today, we're no better than any